Okay, so today I'm going to teach you how to use Procreate and how to work with skin tones. So I've already kind of worked on a sketch, got it pre-sketched out. So if I hide the photo, you can see this would be the sketch that I'm working with. I've also laid out a basic skin tone color to mask out the skin area, and this won't ultimately be the color I'm going to use, but it is a good starting point. So here is that color, so it's kind of a dark, kind of the dark medium tone, and then I'll add the highlight and then a few other tones in there to kind of help balance out the color. I've also added in a mask for the hair and for the headband. Okay, so since I have those all kind of already started, I'm just going to focus on the face for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm making sure that I'm on the skin mask layer, and I'm going to zoom in, and I don't want to actually work on the skin mask layer. I want to work on a layer above it. So I'm going to add a layer and make sure that one becomes a clipping layer. Okay, and then within this I want to select this skin color. So I've hit the square on the left side of the screen and selected the skin tone. And then I want to go in a warmer, lighter tone. Okay, so I'm going to start here and just work with your paint brushes. I have this airbrush, which is probably going to be a good soft airbrush. I want to make sure it's not too big and not too strong. And I'm going to just start and see about kind of highlighting and giving like some cheekbones. And remember, since this is a clipping layer, it will not go beyond the skin. And I know that the left side of this face was much lighter. I can always go back into this photo and see what that looks like again. So, you know, you can see where the highlights are. But then I'm gonna have to close it down and go back and look without it. I could leave it open a little bit because you can kind of see a little bit of that photo. Okay, so that's kind of airbrushed in. You can also take the smudge tool, and if you feel like it doesn't look super smooth, you can kind of smudge the colors and blend it in so it's softer. But for the most part, I think I did pretty good. And now I'm gonna go lighter and maybe a little more yellow in tone. So this will be kind of the highlight. Oops, yeah, okay. And let's make it even lighter and a little bigger. And then I'm gonna make it even smaller to get to the nose. And I got a little too strong here, so I'm just gonna smudge that out a little. I'm still smudging. Okay. And now, you know, you can see it's really kind of saturate in color, but I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna add, have to make this brush a little bigger, add it down here on the neck a little bit. Oops, too much. Okay, and then I want to add more gray tones to this. So you kind of work with the color and then with the grays. You don't want to start with adding too much black and white into the colors you're using. You want to add those later. Okay, so I'm going to make the brush a little smaller. And you just figure out where you want it to be shaded. This color's a little strange, so I'm going to go a little darker. And what you're really doing is kind of sculpting the face. And so I'm going around the eye area now, maybe even a little darker on the right side. And I want this opacity even lighter. As you are adding the shadows, you want it to be pretty faint. And I'm just kind of shaping the mouth and the chin area. Okay, so just continuing on, I was going through the shadows, so I can go a little darker now, and on the right hand side of the face, just kind of add in a bit of the shadow that's already there, and you're just helping to define the area. You can just keep playing with it and go a little darker in the areas that seem like they need more, which would be like under the chin and on the arm. And like I said before, you might want to go in and smudge the edges of the colors that you've created. And you can go and do this later as well. I don't have to do it at this point. It's kind of hard to tell as I'm in the process what needs to happen. So I'm also going to go back and back to the highlight. So I'm going to select that highlight color that I have. And I want to go more into the white zone this time. Okay, and I might want to go a little more in the yellow range, and I might be wrong. You kind of have to play with it and go back and forth. So I'm going to start here and see how it goes. The parts that need to be highlighted should have a little more white to them, and that's going to help make it feel a little more natural in color instead of this like kind of bright yellow tone. And the photo I'm going off of actually has a lot of white in the highlight. So I guess it depends on how you want the sketch to look and how bright or dark you want it to be. Okay, and then I can get even smaller and go in closer to the eyes and add that highlight that's there. And you can just pop it in a few spots, like at the chin. And it's looking pretty good. Let's go and look at it just without the photo, because I still have the photo turned on. Okay, so actually now that I've turned the photo off, you can see all the streaky lines, and this is perfect time to go in with the smudge tool and start to smooth some of this out. And I'll probably go back in again with the shadows. So this kind of has mapped out where I want everything to be, but it's not quite right yet. And even the smudge tool isn't perfect, right? So it kind of creates these weird edges as well. Okay, so now I think I want to get in even closer because I've smudged this up but haven't done a great job at getting the right color around the nose and the mouth. So I'm going to select this color I have here, maybe go a little lighter, and do a smaller brush. Okay, maybe not that small. And I know she looks kind of creepy without the whites of her eyes showing. So I'll go in and I can fix that now, since it looks really weird. Okay, so then the eyes, they also need shading, right? So eyes don't just have this really weird white glow to them. So I'm gonna go in with my paintbrush again, and let's go in real close. And there's a little shadow at the top of the eye. Oops. Let's go back. I want to select out the area. So I'm going to go to freehand, and on the select tool, I'm just going to select the eye so that I don't draw beyond it. Okay, and then I want to take this color with my pencil, with my paintbrush tool, and I probably want to make it smaller. And I'm just going to shade the top. And maybe it's a little warm, so it probably needs to be a little more gray here. And I'm also going to shade in the iris. So let's do a brown tone. And I'm going to bring the opacity down a little bit. And when you're doing eyes, let's go back to, I'm going to go to this soft airbrush. Oops. When you're doing eyes, you want to make sure, I don't know, they're tricky. You want to have some places that have a highlight to them, and you want it shadowed right under where the eyelid is. So you want where the eyelid is to be very dark, right? And then you want some place to look like it reflects the light. So I'm just playing with the colors. I usually put a little highlight up in the top left corner. You could choose, look at your reference and see where that highlight should go. But you're going to shade the bottom and the top areas to be a little darker. And it gives it that kind of glossy, wet look, right? And then obviously the center of the eye, where there's the pupil, would be darker as well. And that one I'll kind of go in and add a little bit of a pupil there. Okay, so that's a pretty good eye. Let me deselect it so you can see how different that is from the other one. So now I'm going to go in and do the same thing to the second eye. See what that looks like. So yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So each eye doesn't have to be the same. You want to think about the right side having more shadow on it, because that side of the face has more shadow. And I think what I'm going to do now is I'm also going to go in and play a little more with these shadows. So I'm taking that medium color, maybe going a little darker. And I want to make the opacity very light and the brush to be a little bigger. So I'm just going to go in and try to shade this a little more. And I want to make this a little bigger. Just trying to get some more dimension to the face. And then I have ignored the lips completely, so I need to go in and give it some more. You can add kind of makeup at this point if you want. So you can start with just find a color you like or that suits the character. I'm gonna go in and select. Oops. I'm gonna go select the lips so I don't draw beyond the lips. And I want to go back into my photo to make sure I made those shadows right. That's pretty good. And I could draw some texture as well in the sketch layer. So I actually went in and highlighted above the upper lip for the mouth, and I think overall it's pretty good. I may decide it needs to go a little lighter, or maybe I went too light actually. But I think overall this is pretty good for the skin, and then I would go on to detail the hair. So to do that, I'm going to go into the hair layer and add a layer above it, and turn that layer 8 into a clipping layer. Okay, and then I'm gonna just go into the hair and add some highlights. So I've selected the color that I have for the mask already, and I'm just gonna go in maybe a little more on the lighter brown side. And I'm gonna get a smaller pencil, or maybe just make this airbrush pretty small. And I'll make it more opaque. And I'm going to go in and just add some of this texture. In the photo, there's some highlighting on this left side. But the other side, the right side, is actually pretty dark because it's in shadow. So I could just choose to give it a little texture, maybe around the edges. It's pretty subtle, but as it gets closer to the face, I'm doing less. So there's more texture on the outside of like the silhouette of the hair, I should say. And then there's a little less going inward. And what I might do is also go in and add some shadow. So I'm going to select the hair color again, and then maybe go into the darker brown. And on the right side, just add some shading. So I'm also adding a similar texture, and over by the neck and ear, you can add some of that shadow texture. And then also on the other side, on the left side, I'm going to do a little shadow by the ear as well, up close to the headband. Just to give some curve to the overall shape of the hair. I'm going up and around over the top. And the mask layer is it's a pretty sharp edge. So, you know, it's kind of goes down to personal preference. Is it stylized or more realistic? So I may go into the hair mask layer and just soften that edge. So if I zoom in and maybe take the eraser tool and get one that's pretty soft. So I'm going to go to the airbrush and do the soft airbrush, and I'll make that smaller.
let me just test this. So I'm gonna go in and kind of feather that edge a little bit here and there. Okay, so it's looking better. And then, you know, just tweak places you feel like it's not quite right. Oops. Okay, so I think that's a good start there as well. And then, you know, for the headband, that's just kind of an added feature for this photo. I would also go in and make a clipping layer and maybe think about what I want the headband to look like in terms of pattern or texture. You know, you can kind of create something that you like. Maybe there's like some kind of a pattern going on. Okay, and then the other thing you want to do is shade it, right? So I'm gonna give it a little curvature to it. I have my airbrush and I'm gonna make it bigger. And I'm on the clipping layer, so I just can kind of go in and shade it. Maybe a little more of the yellow color. And it's kind of hard to see when you're zoomed in so close. Okay, so I mean, that's something. I would say overall it's pretty good. I could just tweak it a little more with the smudge tool perhaps on the face. The screen looks a lot different than it looks on my iPad. So it looks a little choppier on the screen, on the computer screen when I'm recording. So I could go in and kind of smooth that out. And you know what also I'm missing here is I forgot the rest of the makeup. So I did the lips, but I could also do eyeshadow. Let me go back into the face layer because I was drawing on the wrong layer. But on the face layer, what I could do is grab my paintbrush and select the color of the skin, and then I want to go into like maybe an eyeshadow color, or we could go, yeah, let's just do kind of smoky eye. And I know that gets rid of a little bit of the highlight that was on the eye. So you can go back in and let's add some highlight to this upper eye. And I also did not really go into the eyebrows. So maybe now's a good time for that. So I will go and select a brown that's fairly dark, get a pencil, go in to the eyebrows. I'm just going to fill in what's already there. And you can also, you know, if you want the lashes to be stronger, you can do that as well. And we want a darker color for that. Okay. And you know, you can also go in and do some like more darker eyeshadow as well. Really, whatever you want for this picture. Okay, and then blush. So I'm going to select the skin tone again. Oops. So selecting the color, and then I'm going to go into more of a red tone. And let's get the airbrush, and I want to make it very light and a bigger brush. And I'm just going to lightly go and add a little rouge.
Okay, so then here's the final look. I went in and worked on the midtones a little more and knocked back the highlights. And I did put a little shadow underneath the chin to help that pop out. So you just want to go back and forth and experiment with the different tones and see what happens. So good luck.